Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be back here, and I am glad to see so many familiar faces, people I've known for many years, not only here in Washington, my time in Washington, but also internationally with CBN in Virginia Beach. And before I get started here with this panel, we have an esteemed panel of experts this morning. I just want to make a few remarks and remind you, have to put these on, folks. That's the thing about getting older, right? You got to wear these. We have many international visitors here, I'm sure, today. And I want to just explain that, you know, in the United States, we have a saying, especially within the Democratic Party, and these are from people who have been disenfranchised by the Democrats, maybe disgruntled with the Democrats, former Democrats. They say, it's not the party of my father. It's not the same party it was 50 or 60 years ago. It's not the same party that it was under JFK. Similarly, it's not the Middle East today that it was 50 or 60 years ago. And to me, it all started probably about 15 or 20 years ago with the Arab Spring. Remember that? The so-called Arab Spring, late 2010 in Tunisia is where the spark was lit. There were great hopes that there would be freedom and democracy throughout the Middle East, that this would just blossom all over the Middle East. But guess what? We know otherwise, don't we, since then? Instead of a blossoming spring, we ended up with an Arctic blizzard throughout the Middle East, right? And I want to detail just a little bit of that for you on what things are like today. And this will set the stage for our panel this morning. There was a hope for a better tomorrow, but as we know in Egypt, right? This was 1 year after Tunisia. Arab Spring comes in December 2010, the start of it. 1 year later in Egypt, guess who comes to power? I don't have to tell you guys. Muslim Brotherhood. Freedom and Justice Party. But freedom and justice was elusive for Christians in Egypt. Instead of freedom and justice, there were burned churches and blood spilled in the streets. The blood of the martyrs, right? And eventually under ISIS, we saw that with the 21 that were murdered in Libya. Then in 2014, the Islamic State swept through Iraq and into Syria as well. And I know in Iraq, I met in the summer of 2014, I took some relief to Christians in Al-Kosh, and they had been fleeing the ISIS fighters, the jihadists in Karakosh, not far, and they fled to Al-Kosh, so we took them relief. The stories they told me were horrifying. More horrifying were the stories from the Yazidis that I met and interviewed. Women raped, kidnapped, slaughtered, people slaughtered. I mean, I can't say that the Christians were slaughtered. There were Christians who were killed in Iraq, but the Yazidis, they targeted the Yazidis especially. And 10,000 women, that's the estimate, 10,000 Yazidi women were kidnapped. Did you know today there are as many as 3,000 that are still missing? So maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of the Yazidi women that were kidnapped are still missing. Have no idea what happened to them, right? That's the Yazidi community. Now let me mention something about the Jewish community. Got some statistics here for you. This is interesting. As many as 50,000 Jews lived in Damascus and Aleppo before the modern state of Israel was created. So since the late 40s, early 50s, you had 50,000 Jews, primarily in Damascus and Aleppo in Syria. You know how many there are today in Syria? Anybody have a guess? 0. I'm sure the Syrians would say that is because the Jewish state was created, the Zionists, right? They went to be with them, right? Well, we know otherwise, okay? They were chased out. As Christians have been chased out of Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere. Let's take a look at Iraq with the Christians in Iraq. And I don't have to tell you, I think most everyone here knows, 40 years ago, the Christian population in Iraq was about 8% of the country were Christian, right? Probably around 1.4 million people. Okay? You know how many there are today? On the low end, about 150,000. On the high end, maybe 300,000. So somewhere probably in between, okay? 200,000 or so. Why is that? Did they go to a Christian homeland like the Jews did? No. They were killed, and many fled and left, okay? Syria. Let's take a look at Syria. 2 million Christians resided in Syria before the civil war of 2011-2012, when it started. And I was there before it started. I've been there since then. Today, only about 300,000 remain, if that. Where's their homeland? Did they flee to go to their homeland? No. They were also killed, churches destroyed. Many left, right here to America, Canada, elsewhere. Okay? So, I guess the whole point, before we get started with our panel, today in America we have Palestinians and pro-Hamas protesters on our college campuses shouting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." You think that might have something to do with genocide? If it's from the river to the sea, what happens to the Jews who are there, right? And at the same time, they accuse the Jews of committing genocide in Gaza. The real genocide, the true genocide, is against Assyrians, against Jews, against Yazidis in the Middle East. And I thank God that this group is talking about it. Who's telling it? Who's talking about it? I was discussing this with Frank Wolf just a few minutes ago. He said, where are the Christians? Where are the American Christians? So thank God for the Coptic Christians. I congratulate you on 15 years now, and we have a distinguished panel of guests I'd like to introduce now. Would you please come forward and be seated, and I'll introduce you.